G'day, you injury-prone Bomber fans. The time has come. I think this was pretty much bound to happen, really. Essendon have parted ways with the head of high performance, Sean Murphy, after one of the worst injury-riddled seasons I've seen in recent times. The Bombers have had a brutal run at it, even equaling the record for most debutants in an AFL season because of it. There are players falling left, right and centre. Plenty are going to miss, not even 2025, but patches of 2026 as well. So it's not good. Even if it wasn't Murphy's fault, because realistically, what do we know? What do us nuffies know? Even if it wasn't his fault, a change had to be made, something had to be done, and something has been done. Murphy's contract will not be renewed in 2026, and on top of that, the club is still conducting its investigation into the common injuries, and it will be resurfacing the hangar again. It is a shocking situation we found ourselves in, but at least the club is acting and doing something about it. So now, I'm going to look at the fitness gurus who have been linked with the Bombers to take over from Murphy's role, and I'll also throw in a couple of names that maybe haven't been linked but who could be a good fit. Remember, I'm not a very smart man when it comes to the human body, so if you've got any medical background and know how to use the comments section, go crazy with it. But yeah, let's look at the potential incoming medical bosses, those who've been linked, those who potentially could be linked with time. I suspect we won't make any major changes anytime soon. There's a bit of a merry-go-round in this department across the comp, so, someone who could be coming into the club is probably with another team right now. It will likely come near the end of the season or after the season concludes, but let's get into it. Let's start with the best-case scenario. I feel like, and remember, I'm nowhere near an expert on this sort of stuff, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a head of high performance with a resume or reputation quite like Darren Burgess. He is one of the most respected figures in his role in the competition. He's currently with Adelaide, a club with one of the smaller injury lists in the comp. But prior to that, he was with the Premiership-winning Melbourne Demons. He had worked with the Socceroos. He was at my Premier League club Arsenal and Liverpool as well. Not just small roles there, but he was the head of fitness and conditioning at Liverpool, the director of high performance at the Gunners. He really does have a sizable resume, not just in footy, but in sport in general. And since joining the Crows, clubs have been trying to pry him away rather than finding, available options. I remember in 2024, Richmond were closely linked with Burgess before he decided to remain in SA. He's clearly the man for the job, for any job. There's a reason why clubs are so desperate to try and get him across, even while he's contracted. Cal Toomey reported that he was a name the Bombers would potentially look at, and this was before Murphy was given the sack. But it is believed that Burgess has told the Adelaide Crows that he has no intention of leaving, so if that news is anything to go off, I reckon we can almost rule out Burgess and look at other options. But yeah, this is obviously the most ideal of the options out there. Up next, a more realistic option. So Tom Morris has linked Essendon with Andrew Russell, who was recently the high performance boss at Carlton. He actually resigned from the position last year in 2024, and that year, by the way, for Carlton, it was hampered heavily by injuries, which obviously frustrated fans of the Bombers hearing that we're linked with Russell, the man who was at the club during that time. It should be noted, though, his history and career is probably stronger than Burgess, who I just spoke of. He has been involved in 6 premierships across a range of different clubs. He was with Hawthorn during their three-peat. He was with the Power during 2004. He was with the Bombers in 2000 as well. So this would be a second dipping if he was to join the Bombers again. Russell obviously didn't get everything right in 2024. Maybe that was his fault. Maybe it was bad luck. But something he is known for is getting injury-prone players back on track. He played a massive role in the resurrection of Charlie Curnow's career. As we know, before his Coleman medals, he was constantly battling knee issues. Those have almost pretty much gone away. Russell is a big reason for Curnow and others' career resurrections, and that is something to note with all the injury-prone players that we currently have at Essendon, because Zach Reed, Jordan Ridley, Darcy Parish, there are guys that haven't played a full season of footy in too long. And the one thing that I noticed when looking at Russell, and this may be a coincidence, is that not only can he get players' careers back on track, but success follows him. He's been a part of 3 different flag-winning clubs in the last 2 decades. He's had 4 Brownlow medalists under his routine. It was only a year ago that he quit footy to focus on other things, so whether or not the club can convince him to join the fold again, time will tell. And more importantly, would he want to lead a club with a shocking track record, with injury-prone players left, right and centre? If he wants to take on that challenge, I'd back it. He's gone on the record to state that a big part of that 2024 Carlton injury crisis he felt was the lack of responsibility he was given for that rehab group. They changed the structure in that year. Whether or not he he would fix things at Essendon is hard to see. He'd obviously need a bigger responsibility there, but he has one of the best resumes in footy and may be available if he's willing. So, yeah, he's one of the leading candidates, although I should say this early on, it is impossible to know what direction we'll go in. Now, the other man who Tom Morris listed off as a potential option for Essendon is Matt Inness, who is currently working at the West Coast Eagles. If you'll remember, by the way, look back to 2022, the Eagles had an extensive injury list. In fact, due to both COVID and injuries, they were forced to use top-up players. They played 47 different players in 2022, so it was actually a lot worse than what we have now. After that, they parted ways with their head of high performance and replaced him with Matthew Inness. And since then, things have been better for the club. You know, there were players who a few years ago looked done, completely finished due to injury, and some of those players have managed to revive their careers a bit in terms of availability. In fact, at the start of round 19, this round, West Coast actually had the smallest injury list in the comp, with 4 listed players unavailable to play. In round 19 of 2022, they had 3 times that, 13 players on the injury list. So things have changed at West Coast under Inness. It is not perfect. There are still guys like Oscar Allen who hasn't been able to get on the park, and Elliot Yeo who just cannot manage to get his body in order. But Eagles fans can clearly tell you that in the last few years, the fitness at the club has improved. Players are more available to play than they have been in years. And Matthew Inness, I guess, is clearly an option. He was another who found success at an AFL club. He was at the Bulldogs during that 2016 flag. He was an athlete himself. He was a cricketer back in the day, originally from Victoria. So yeah, definitely one of the names on the whiteboard at the club. Now, there are no real links to the next 2 guys I'm going to talk about, given the fact that we've only, parted ways with Sean Murphy a few days ago. But I want to highlight this guy who is becoming more and more sought after in the AFL landscape. His name is Phil Merriman. He is, one that I think could generate some noise in this landscape as the year goes on. He's currently working with Fremantle and has really helped the club build a platform to challenge for finals in the last few years. He's been there since 2020 and is relatively fresh in the landscape. He comes from a hockey background, having worked there for most of his early career post his Masters. He then joined the footy landscape in 2011 as a physical performance coach at Hawthorn, working underneath Andrew Russell during those 3-peat flags. He then moved to Melbourne as the rehab coach and would transition into a new role as the head of strength and conditioning in 2019, halfway through the season. And that is when they rose up the ladder, I believe, or I could be mistaken, maybe it was a bit before. But yeah, he's been at Fremantle since 2020. He's the high performance manager there, and it's his experience under the best that his club's lining up for him. He's worked under Andrew Russell, he's worked under Darren Burgess, who I've both spoken about, he's worked under Moore. In fact, I believe he was the one who initially replaced Burgess at Melbourne, maybe. And after 4 years away from the state he has worked in most, Melbourne, maybe it is worth asking the question of him again. He's quickly becoming one of the more respected figures in his role. I look at Fremantle in these last few years, they are clearly a club that gets the most out of their young players, and Essendon are a club with quite a few young players. And finally, this is kind of the Hail Mary, but for a long time, there's been a team in the AFL that has kind of frustrated me a bit in just how fantastic they are at bringing injured players in and somehow just fixing their bodies. Is it black magic? Is it an incredible head of high performance? I don't know, but Damien Austin at Brisbane has been, I believe, the longest serving of the current high performance managers at AFL clubs. He's been at the Lions since 2015. Before that, he was a member of the Sydney Swans, but he was given the keys at the Lions and has been a huge factor in that club's rise to success. And think about Brisbane, right? And just how effective they are at trading and bringing players into the club who have worries about injuries. Joe Danaher, for example, was a big one. He couldn't get on the park at Essendon. He retired at the Lions, having won a flag. Right now, the Lions barely have an injury list to speak of, and they'll be regaining Lincoln McCarthy from an ACL injury that he suffered in March this year. That is a 6-month ACL injury, pretty much. But yeah, Austin is clearly happy at Brisbane and has made a career there with Fagan. Their careers kind of line up. We probably don't get him realistically, but it would be good to support a club who has a reputation of bringing injury-prone players in and fixing their issues, because that is what Brisbane currently have going for them. But that is that. Those were 5 options for the Bombers as they look to replace Sean Murphy. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. I'm sure we'll have more news about this as the year goes on. I'm excited to see what direction the club goes in, because it is a big change, but one that definitely needed to be made. But yeah, that is all. Like, subscribe, and as always, go Bombers.